2023. Thank you everybody for staying all the way to today. So this as a closure for the MPC 2023, we will bring you this forum entitled Safeguarding Patients Using Electronic Prescription Systems to Empower Primary Care. So I think we are currently in a very exciting stage whereby our Poisons Act has finally been revised to officially recognize electronic prescriptions for the first time after decades of pre-Merdeka acts. So finally the word electronics have appeared in our acts. And so we now as pharmacists, we have to leverage on this technology in our daily practices and healthcare so that we can enhance the quality and efficiency of patient care in this digital age. So I think for most practices, we are still using a lot of manual processes, manual recordings, and now we are suddenly thrown with the permission to use these digital solutions, or for today in particular, electronic prescription systems, or the short form we call it EPS, which has an immense potential to offer more improved patient safety and reduce prescription errors, dispensing errors, and also streamline our healthcare processes. So I think in terms of the Ministry of Health, they have already launched the PHIS system for the past few years. But at the primary care side, especially in the private sector, I think it's still sorely lacking. So which is why today we are having this discussion. So as we navigate this landscape today, we have the privilege this morning being joined by an esteemed panel of experts who bring their unique perspectives from their respective practices in areas of we have health informatics, digital security, law enforcement, as well as a digital healthcare provider. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce Madam Nadzifah binti Mohd Ariffin. So Madam is currently the Deputy Director of Pharmacy Information Technology and Informatik Subdivision under the Pharmacy Policy and Strategic Planning Division at the Ministry of Health. So she has vast experience at Hospital Tengku Puan Jemaah, Sabak Bernam, as well as Hospital Sultan Nursyila, formerly known as Hospital Serdang. So she has been actively involved in the development of the Hospital Serdang's pharmacy information system, as well as the current MOH pharmacy information system. So I would like to welcome our first panelist on stage. Okay, next we have our visionary CEO of MSC Sdn Bhd, Mr. Nyan Tjing. So Mr. Loh has a master's degree in computer science and also a track record of digital transformation. So currently, I think MSC Sdn Bhd's work is mostly on providing solutions across different sectors in terms of influencing the landscape of paperless solutions, as well as improving the security and of all the digital healthcare processes. Okay, welcome, Mr. Loh. Okay, the third panelist I would like to introduce is Miss Nursyila binti Mohd. So she is the section head of the licensing subdivision at the Pharmacy Enforcement Division in the Ministry of Health. So she was previously based at Police Pharmacy Enforcement Branch for many years before being posted to the licensing subdivision of the Pharmacy Enforcement Division in Mohd. So I would like to welcome our third panelist. last but not least, we have Dr. Raymond Choy. I think he's already a very popular figure in our pharmacy space. So he is known as the co-founder and CEO of Doc2Us. So a bit of background of Dr. Raymond. He specializes in family and aviation medicine. He's an alumnus of IMU, International Medical University. So he graduated also from the University of Manchester, UK with MBBS. Dr. Choy also received medical training at John Radcliffe Hospital, Oxford, UK for over 3 years and pursued his career as a physician leader at Raffles Medical Group, Singapore, where he managed 24-hour Changi International Airport clusters and overseeing all the cluster clinics. So he's very passionate about public health care. And then Dr. Choy later on co-founded Doc2Us and incorporated the company under the name Hey Doc International Sdn Bhd in 2015. So I'd like to welcome our Ask panelists today. Okay, so for the first question of today, as we begin our forum, we'd like to maybe perhaps do a bit of an introduction of what is actually electronic prescribing system. We'd like to first get the insights from Puan Nadzifah. Maybe Puan Nadzifah, we know that KKM has already launched PHIS in almost all the pharmacies and clinics, hospitals in Malaysia. But there are particularly a few places where they have utilized a full PHIS, whereby the doctor side they prescribe using the PHIS system, and then all the way to the pharmacies dispensing the medications. So for those in private hospitals, maybe some of you have already been exposed to this prescribing system, but maybe one can share, especially on the primary care side, are there any PKDs, clinical kesihatan, which have been utilizing this full electronic prescribing system from the start to the end? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for having me also here. So with PHIS, it has already been 9 years, going into 10, and it will be next year for some of our first pilot project. So PHIS is a full pharmacy service, how do you call it? Not just the e-prescriptions lah. So actually PHIS is even more than that. So we have all our pharmacy services electronic now, most of it. So today, as of today, we already have around 1,290 plus facilities, hospitals and KKs lah. So for the full system, so actually we have two models. So one is the one where we have integration with a source system like TPC, TPCOGs, and also for hospital we have HIS and KKM, and also we have full PHIS service lah. So with the full PHIS, full base need, we have it from the registration of patient, AMR, no AMR, only for prescribing of prescriptions and in the PHIS, and the prescription flows to our site for dispensing and everything. So unfortunately, for the full base yang covered under the PHIS project, we only managed to have it during the pilot stage only, because the constraints would be the cost lah. Because when you want to have the doctor to do it electronically, you must have the hardware and the infra. So only for PKD kita, our pilot project, actually the first one was PKD Bintang lah. So those were the ones yang we successfully managed to implement it as full PHIS system. At the time, the macam TPC, TPCOG came a bit later lah, with the oral health punya system. But the first one was TPC, not that many also lah. because when you have two, then you must have integration. So the system needs to talk to each other. So even in that point, we have two models. So like PHIS at KKM, there is a single sign-on for both HRS and PHIS, where from the HRS system, the registration of patient is in the HRS at KKM, and then the doctors will be using our HRS module to prescribe. For TPC OGs, the registration and the prescription is from TPC itself. So then the prescription comes into PHIS. So we make do with what is available. And just to share juga, nowadays there are a newer version of BMR coming into the picture in the public sector, due to the, if you were to have a phone system in the hospitals or in the KK, the budget is humongous. So we need to go for RMK, waiting for approval only, it can be launched now. So with this PHIS project, we are being, dicemburui, maksudnya, envious by the other disciplines lah in KKN, because only PHIS project managed to cover almost up to 2,000 facilities. And even now, actually, the ones yang kita waiting for, there are still some KKs which are not implemented, but it's all because of infrastructure lah. Because if the project were to cover everything, also we cannot give to everybody. So there are some restrictions also on the project lah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Puan. So, as you can see, the process of an electronic prescribing system doesn't mean you start from the prescribing itself. You can go all the way from the registration until dispensing and so forth, subsequent requirements. Right? And of course, now we're talking about cost. Cost is the most hottest topic nowadays on how to implement digitalization in your respective premises. So I would like to invite Dr. Raymond. I think he has his own EPS system to share on how the EPS works at the primary care level and how the costing structure can assist our pharmacies in terms of implementation.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, moderator. Thanks, Paul. Thank you for having me today, and just to share a little bit what we have been doing at the community level. So what Puan has been doing is great, right, with PHIS, at the public sector, right? So I think, some of the key problems or key issues, faced by a lot of, public sectors, not only in Malaysia but around the world, cost, right? Cost is also one of the limiting factors, and the other is interoperability. When it comes to all this data, all these digital health solutions, right, and one of the most painful points, which lots of sectors are facing, is actually the interoperability issues. I give an example, right? So PHIS is one system, right, and the private sectors, multiple systems, right, and each and every day of us, right, we are receiving and processing data from north, south, east, west. Right? How do we make it, so interoperable among and with, either unstructured data, structured data, and how can we normalize it? And this is a huge effort needed from all sectors, not only public but also private. So that's why we have all this, PPP, right? Public-private, partnership and all this. So what we have been doing at the community level, so we started back in 2017. When we first started, just a simple, telehealth solution where, naively we thought, by providing a platform to the consumers that, that can actually communicate with the doctors, it would work. That was before COVID time, I call it BC time. So when we first launched in 2017, no one cares about online consultation, because you and I know that, accessing to clinic kesehatan, to public GPs, to private GPs are not issue, right? So most of the places you can reach out to them. So we faced huge problems when we first launched up in 2017 as a B2C model. Hence we pivoted and we looked at one of the chain pharmacies. And we were privileged enough to actually given the opportunity to study the community pharmacy, this group. So that time there were about 30 plus outlets. It was Alpro. Alpro Pharmacy was the very first pharmacy in 2017 actually believed in digital health and e-prescription. So hence we were given the opportunity to really, look all the processes among the community pharmacy, all the pain points, what they are facing. And not to our surprise, but that is the common practice, right? We saw a lot of patients walk into community pharmacies on a daily basis, requesting for medication without prescriptions, right? And we all know this is not ethical, not legal, and neither it is safe. So hence we thought, can we actually, implement or introduce some form of telehealth elements or telemedicine elements, right? In a way, putting a doctor working closely with the pharmacies at the community level, right? So that was a very, very, naive thinking back in 2017. We studied, we tried to do it, and we came up with a very small pilot project called, telemedicine kiosk. So in a way, we put a small little kiosk in the pharmacy outlet, so where the patients walk in requesting for amlodipine for their blood pressure, for instance, right? But without prescription, surprisingly, right? But insisted on getting the prescription. Do we shy them away and say, no, you're going to get a prescription from a GP or get the medication directly from the clinic? We all know that the consumer behavior today or yesterday, they will go to the pharmacy actually, within this 4 walls, we all know that, right, there will be some activities going on. So hence, can we actually support our pharmacies, right? So hence, with this telemedicine kiosk, they can actually invite the patient with the presence of the pharmacist in the room, right, to have an online consultation with the patients, with the doctors online. So in a way that, you can get, a consultation from the doctors and get all the data, like the blood pressure, all the data pumped to the system, to the doctors, and the doctors can remotely and electronically prescribe to the patients. And we thought that would work, right, back in 2017, right? And when we first launched the pilot, we had huge problem and huge challenge, and all the auntie, uncles, pakcik came in and scolded all our pharmacy partners. You know why? Because they say, my car is outside, I'm going to get someone, right? And you used to, this process only 3 minutes, now you're taking 30 minutes, right? You have to start from registration, like Puan mentioned, right? The system is not only about prescribing, it's about the whole process. Of course, our system wasn't, as comprehensive as PHIS, where, but you still needed some form of a formality, right, to register the patients, and it's very painful. You see the pain point, you want to create a solution to create pain points, to solve the pain points, yet we created new pain points, right, to the customer. So fast forward, we saw all these challenges, hence we improvised. From telemedicine kiosk all the way improvised and into today's electronic prescribing system, EPS, where it's used by more than 1,600 over pharmacy outlets in Malaysia right now, with average prescription rate of 2 prescriptions every 1 minute as we speak right now, that being issued and dispensed by the pharmacy using digital signature as required by the new amendment of the Poison Act. And that's digital signature, of course, thanks to Mr. Loh of Trustgate, who is our strategic partner. So that is how we built from the very scratch, from the very initial idea of the kiosk system, which doesn't work because it didn't fit into the relevance of the consumer's behavior, right? And because whatever we want to introduce or want to implement, right, it's not about what we want. We have to look at what the market needs, right? A lot of times in healthcare sectors is what we want. But do we actually look at what the market needs, what your patient needs, what the consumers need? And that is a key thing that we need to look at. It's not about you create a solution and then look for pain points. No. We look at the pain points, look at the solution that is relevant and relevant to the patient's needs, relevant to the consumer needs, and most importantly, relevant to the market needs. And that's what we call the product market fit. So we are still studying, improvising on a daily basis. And yeah, so that will be my introduction of what we've been doing, especially on the EPS side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raymond. So yeah, EPS is not as simple as it sounds of just one person prescribe another person's dispense, which also brings about the legality of the prescription. Just now Dr. Raymond mentioned on digital signature. I think we hear about this digital signature everywhere. So what exactly is digital signature? Is it I open a PDF and then I just use Microsoft Paint and then I draw my signature and then I paste it and then you call it digital signature? Or is that something else? So we'd like to invite Mr. Law to share with us, pharmacists, I think, what exactly is digital signature and briefly and how it impacts EPS.
Thank you for inviting me to this forum. I think when we started this exercise, right, in 2019, when our pro came to approach us to provide digital signature for EPS, we have several concerns. Number one is, like say, whether the healthcare industry know the difference between electronic signature and digital signature, and also the adoption rate in the industry can be challenging because at that time there was no mandate. So we were concerned about whether the market size as well as the resources that we need to put in. So in a very simple descriptions of the difference between electronic signature and digital signature is that electronic signature is like the where you put actually an image, you copy any image you put into the document is considered your signature, because that is actually governed under the Commerce Act 2006. So you put anything, you can put your apostrophe or anything is considered electronic signature. For digital signature, actually it involves the technology being used behind. What we call is the cryptographic technique. There is what we call a keypad being generated, a unique keypad associated with the signer. So there's a public key and a private key. So you have full control of your private key that required to generate the digital signature. So in this case, when you sign that document, you cannot deny that you have not signed because the key is unique to you. So in our case, we actually, I think some of you have been using the system, right? You know that before you sign apply your digital signature, you are required to enter a PIN. So this PIN actually is unique to you, and when we have this PIN, we will then create your digital signature onto the system. So the digital signature has certain properties. For instance, number one is the integrity. That means, when you modify the contents, the signature verification will know that this content has been modified. Number two is the authenticity. That means when you sign the documents, right, because you are using your unique private key, we will be able to identify the signer. Okay, so number three is the non-reputation. So basically what it means is that when you apply your signature into the prescriptions, you cannot deny that you have signed it. So under the Digital Signature Act 1997, right, digitally signed document is admissible in court.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Law. So for the digital signature, there will be two parts, right? One is signed by the prescriber. Does the pharmacist need to sign as well?
It depends on the EPS. I think for doctors, it is required. For the pharmacy, for the doctor to sign first, then the pharmacy to sign.
Yeah, so it's like the manual processes. So for the prescriber, before they issue the prescription, instead of using a pen, they will have the digital signature. And when the pharmacist dispense, they will also need to sign to confirm that the script has indeed been dispensed and cannot be reused. So which brings about the legality on the prescriptions and the transactions. We'd like to pass this question to Sheikh Rashidah on how do we ensure the transactions, these prescriptions are valid, and how pharmacy enforcement or any other departments in the KKM or the government to ensure that we are not abusing electronic prescribing and dispensing. So maybe a doctor can simply prescribe 10 ounces of psychotropics and then the pharmacist just dispense. So how does the enforcement side govern this? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Thank you for moderator and organizer for inviting me. Okay, in terms of regulating online sale of medicines, as all know, there is government under Poisons Act Poison Site London 52 is the latest version is 2022. So under that amended version, there is specific provision for electronic prescription mentioned under Section 21. So it is specifically mentioned under Section 21 of the Poisons Act how the electronic prescription. So the electronic prescription must be in electronic form and then be signed digitally signature, and then the third one, it is in electronic message direct transfer to the pharmacist. So the electronic prescription cannot be through any email or WhatsApp, so it must be directly transferred through the system from the registered medical practitioner to the pharmacist, to the licensed or registered pharmacist. So that one is the requirement under Section 21 for Group B. We have Group B poison, and then we also have Group C poison. So for Group C poison, for our topic today is electronic prescription system. But as for pharmacies, you can also supply Group C poison. So Group C poison can be supplied without prescription. Yeah. So but the main requirement, it must be complied with the Section 22 of Poisons Act. It must be supplied as a dispensed medicine. So how are we going to fulfill the requirement of dispensed medicine? It is must based on the definition under Section 2 of Poisons Act. Whereas the system must be through the have online consultation under online consultation with the pharmacist and the patient. So that's the main requirement. And then beside the requirement under the Act to govern this industry, the Pharmaceutical Services Program also has issued another guideline that we call Garis Pandang Perkhidmatan E-Pharmacy dalam Perkhidmatan OHS. So the guideline already all of you can download that guidelines in our portal www.pharmacy.gov.my. So that one is can serve as a reference and guidance for the industry. Yeah? So all the requirements that I've mentioned under Section 21 and Section 22, we already consolidated that into that guidelines. Yeah? So the guideline, you can have a look. There are 3 methods of e-pharmacy in that guideline. Yeah? So that's govern all the industry online sales of medicines. Today is on regarding poisons, because non-poisons and OTC, as we all know, all the marketplace pun dah jual kan. But for poisons, it must comply with the requirement under the Poisons Act 1952. Yeah? So that's for the beginning.
Okay, thank you, Puan. So I think it's pretty clear that for the EPS, for beginners, we need a system. So I think we cannot, like the doctors write a script and then scan it, and then they email to the pharmacy, and then they dispense. So this is not allowed. You need to have a system where you can log in, and the data is controlled and cannot be amended before we are allowed to electronically prescribe and dispense. So in terms of EPS implementation, as we all know, community pharmacies are the most accessible healthcare in Malaysia and around the world at the moment. And the Ministry of Health is also talking about DUNAS, and we have a special component 5 regarding talking about collaboration with healthcare industries. So how can we promote EPS in terms of the primary care, and what are the challenges on maybe Dr. Raymond can share on introducing, when we first introduced to community pharmacies, why were the uptake, just like you mentioned, only Pro was the one taking up. So what are the challenges in terms of implementing EPS in the primary care settings?
Thank you. I think that's a very good question. One of the common questions asked, especially for all the digital guys, right? The challenges. I think there are a few of them, right? So number one, when you implementing something new, that means there's no benchmark, right? There's no one in the market, right? You are creating a new thing, right? For instance, apart from PHIS at the public sector, during our time, at the community level, there wasn't something like electronic prescribing system where there's a direct e-prescription flows to the pharmacy, and pharmacy is able to access and sign digitally and dispense on the spot, right? So there's no such cloud-based model. So one of the challenges is awareness, right? When you are new, there's no awareness. You have to spend a lot of resources, energy, training to raise awareness among the community pharmacy. We started with outgrowth. Subsequently, we actually attracted more like-minded, chain pharmacies, like big pharmacies and all these, as well as more and more smaller chain, as well as the independent pharmacies, right? So that takes time. It took us maybe 4 or 5 years to reach 1,006 over outlets today, right? Using our solution, probably about 40% market share at the moment. The second challenge is actually infrastructure readiness, right? So you might have a very brilliant idea, the system is working very well, on your side, but is the infrastructure ready for your system to plug in, right? So that also is an issue. Remember, I mentioned earlier interoperability issue. Even till right now, we are still trying to solve this problem, where GPs have hundreds of EMR or CMS systems. They don't talk to each other. And lab information system, hospital, you have HIS. I'm talking about private sector here. So of course, government, they have all everything, try to merge everything and interoperate everything. But at the community level, primary care level in the private sector is very fragmented. Even private hospitals, right, tertiary care is so fragmented. So my data set, might only mean to my side, might not mean to the rest. But we are very, proud to say that, of course, the collective effort from my team, that every 3 pharmacies we walk by at the community level, one of them is using one system, EPS from our side. So that means today you actually get, dispensed from Watson's pharmacy, right? 1 month later, you go to Caring, right? And Caring pharmacy will be able to assess what's been dispensed and prescribed 1 month ago at Watson's. Of course, the system do not share any, sensitive, data like pricing, which we are fully aware of. But the key is the interoperability of the data and the continuity of care. That, at the primary care level, at the community pharmacy level, we are quite confident we don't have hundreds of systems like clinic system, right? So there are only a few players in this realm, so which is good. If we can actually merge all together, the power of this data is going to be very, very useful for not only for the patients, but also for the providers, right? In the healthcare sectors, we always look at 5 stakeholders, right? The 5 Ps, right? Patient is always number 1, providers like all of us, right? Number 3 is Puan sitting next to me, policymaker. You cannot run away from working, against, policymaker. You have to work with policymaker, right? And when we first came up with the EPS, there wasn't in the market, and of course, policymaker like the PRA said they were not aware. So we went proactively to policymaker, and my language, we stripped naked, right? To the NPRA, like from in and out, A to Z, right? Your processes, your mitigation steps, all this, right? And your people, how you manage all this. We stripped naked for everyone to study, for NPRA to study, and initially we were using electronic signature. And we were advised by NPRA, I think that was in 2018 time, that therefore digital signature will be more secure and more safe because we are remotely prescribing and dispensing to the patient, right? So how do I know this is Dr. A electronically and remotely prescribing? How do I know this is a pharmacist B who actually dispensing remotely electronically, right? So there must be some authorization, some check and balance. Hence, we were advised to go for digital signature, and because of that, we invested quite a fair bit with a trusted Mr. Lowe's company, and we started the very first in the market using digital signature system on the e-prescription. And that's the second challenge that we have been facing, the infrastructure readiness. Number 3, of course, we can't run away from my cohort here, the policy maker side. This is also a challenge for any digital health solution because, like it or not, we are all in a very complex industry. In fact, it's the most complex industry among all, right? Because it involves so many different stakeholders in the whole healthcare industry. And because of the complexity, and hence, and as well as a highly regulated industry, and hence, this is sadly the least disrupted industry. If you look at e-banking today, right? they are growing exponentially fast, right, compared to healthcare. But we cannot run away because we are dealing with health and safety. There are a lot of rules and regulations governing this space, ensuring all the solutions that we provide to the patient are safe, ethical, and professional, right? An example is our very famous Poison Act, 1952. We are in 2023, right? So the Act of 1952, obviously it worked during the 50s, right? Is it still working or applicable to today's? Of course, the fundamental, yes, but there are things, a lot of things have been changed. And policymakers are very tight in hands because they are following the book. They have to follow the book because it has a lot of, processes all the way to the gazettement of the Act, right? But even though, MOH wants to give a space for us to innovate, of course, the space must be within a safe environment. So hence, we are quite happy and to see the amendment of Poison Act 1952, particularly talking about e-prescription, right? And of course, Puan actually mentioned about the 3 criteria in order to have an e-prescription. So the policymakers can be the challenge, but I think we have to work with them, let them understand, right, and let work together to create a more ethical, professional, and safe healthcare solution to the people. Yeah, that would be my 3 challenges from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Just now you mentioned a very good point, which is the integration and the sharing of medical history, especially of the medicines by patients. I think continuity of care is a huge issue in Malaysia, whereby patients do doctors, GPs, and community pharmacies hopping all the time. So in terms of the policy side, I'd like to invite Nadzifah to share. How do you think EPS can help Malaysia in general in terms of ensuring that our continuity of care, especially on the medication side, can be further improved with EPS? I'm sure this is why again we move forward with PHIS. So from the private sector side, what's your thoughts on this?
Regarding using EPS in the primary care setting, because we find patients went to our hospitals, went to our KKs, and then went also to the GPs and went to the pharmacies. They go everywhere. Even in one district also, we can find patient hopping here and there. So with an integrated system, like Dr. Raymond said tadi, we can know where the patient has gone before. So whether they are collecting medications or are they, just shopping here and there, that's what we want. But at the same time, the challenge, the infrastructure, the change management is very important. So in the Malaysian Health White Paper, the ones that were presented in June last month, so one of the effort that has been mentioned inside the Health White Paper is to see that from the government to the primary care, digital initiative is already inside the plan, but the plan is around 15 years plan. So the first 5 years initiative is to strengthen the public sector first, where we are also looking into an integrated life medication history of the patient, and then following through to the 6 to 10 years plan is to expand to the whole Malaysia public sectors, and then only we are going to venture into the rest community because if you want individual effort, that is going to be partly possible because the cost and also the interoperability issues because integration even the ones yang for PHRS, the ones yang already been using for almost more than 5 years, every day they would have some integration issue. Patient record tak masuk. The prescription ordered and the prescription received was dispensed. Maybe the dose was 10 mg, you dispense as 25 mg. It came back into the record was different. So medication errors is still an issue, although at the same time, just prescription sometimes is not enough lah. What we also need is also the medical history or the medical notes of the doctor to justify sometimes why the doctor is prescribing the medication. Just with the prescription without diagnosis, sometimes you wonder why the doctor is prescribing. What is the reason behind it? So just electronic prescription is not sufficient. So you really need the whole ecosystem actually to be able to give better care to the patient.
Okay, thank you, Puan. Very valid points. I think integration data, even the diagnosis, it's not just about the medications as well. In terms of diagnosis, I think we've all received funny prescriptions in the pharmacy, and then the challenge is to actually call the doctors to clarify what is their decision making like. And I think with EPS, it will make our job as pharmacists much more easier, because sometimes the doctor either busy or maybe has some personalities issue, may not be that cooperative. I think especially on the private side, I think my colleagues in the CPs may agree with me. It's so difficult when patients come with a medicine and unlabeled ones at times to get to follow up with their respective prescribers. So, but this comes at a concern as well when we are sharing data like this. Malaysia, we have a PDPA to govern the safety of our data. So I would like to pose these two questions to our Mr. Loh and Nursyila on how the government, as well as a digital signature provider, can safely protect the data, and how do we ensure that the patient's data, the diagnosis doesn't get leaked out, and what kind of, how do you look into the system to ensure that, okay, I trust maybe doctors that we will offer the digital signature. I'm sure you don't simply provide a company and say, okay, we will just let you use our system without any verification. So I'm sure there is some sort of a way that you guys ensure that the system won't be easily hacked, won't be easily linked, that the patient's data are secure.
Hopefully my share is not too technical. Okay, as a certificate authority, we are licensed by MCMC since 2000. We also register with the PDPA agency. So to ensure that the patient's privacy, right, we have put in various efforts into ensure that our system complies with PDPA. I share with you two areas. Number one is we actually deploy an agent, a software agents into the EPS infrastructure. So this software agent ensure that the patient's data remain in the control environment. So basically, the agent acts as a bridge between the EPS and our system, facilitating the signing process, but not sending the sensitive information to our system. So, in other words, the agent only send what we call the hash value, mathematical calculations for us to generate the digital signature. So this ensure that the patient's information is not exposed or sent to us, and make it more secure, and it actually comply with the Data Protection Act. The second area is the communication between the EPS and our system is secure, so you get another level of security. So basically, any transmission between the agents and the system is encrypted. so you cannot intercept or tamper with during the transmission. Of course, to ensure that when we issue, when the person need to sign or digitally sign, we need to ensure that we verify the identity of the person. In this case, like the doctors and the pharmacists. So here we require them to submit to us their IC for us to process their applications, and then we will also confirm their registration with Prisma's website, where the pharmacy must be registered, and for the doctors it's MSC website. So in this case, then once the process is completed, then we will issue the digital certificate to the user for them to sign the prescriptions.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I think there's a safeguard mechanism that we don't abuse, especially the digital signature side. So because we may have unfriendly colleagues, I think at work who may want to sabo us. So if they get access to our accounts, they log in and they simply sign off. At least I believe we have a safeguard on that side with all the PIN numbers. I think this is where the enforcement side comes in. So I think pharmacies are concerned on the recent increase in fines. So if they are now adopting EPS, how would they not get into trouble, especially in terms of receiving prescriptions and dispensing electronic prescriptions? Because if they go through the system, it's fine. But will the dispenser get into the one dispensing get into trouble? Or let's say there's an medication error or poison B or supply wrongly. So is the one who is digitally signed the one completely liable for the offences, or if there were other staff who helps to process the prescription in the process, who will be ultimately the ones responsible for the mistake of offences?
For that question, actually it is the same, whether it is sold by through online system or at a physical premise. So to charge somebody, the enforcement must conduct investigation. So we will need to investigate based on the provision under the Poisons Act. If the sales is conducted by the pharmacies, the licensed pharmacies, so the charge will be to the pharmacies. But if the pharmacies have take all the measures and then the ID is securely saved, but somebody stole his or her ID and then used to dispense that medicine, and he or she can prove that during our investigation. So it depends on the finding of an investigation. So, but as far as the licensed pharmacies, because as Dr. Raymond have already mentioned, there are so many EPS systems nowadays. So many platform providers. So to choose the platform provider, you have to ensure that the system, you have to check first, before you choose which platform provider you want to be partner. So you have to ensure that the system must be have a process of registration of patient, because at the end you have to record the supply of poisons in the prescription book. So the patient, the information of the patient must be in the system. So then the system must be occupied with the registration of patient process. And then the second one, as Mr. Loy already mentioned, in the system also it needs to have registration of healthcare professional, whether it is registered medical practitioner, registered dentist, or the licensed pharmacist or registered pharmacy. This registration is to ensure the qualification of the pharmacist. And then the third one, the prescription must be transmitted through the online system, and you have to ensure that you have to ask the platform provider which issue the digital signature for that system, because besides Strategik, we have another 3 company licensed under MCMC. So you can look at MCMC website. Besides Strategik, there is Post Digicert, and then Telecom Applied, and then the last one is Rafcom. Yeah? So if the digital signature is issued either one of the company, and then it's fulfill the requirements of Digital Signature Act, and the security of the document and the transaction is secure and safe. And then the endorsement of the pharmacist also must be done electronically. So that's why, as Mr. Loh explained earlier, for Doc2Earth system, the digital signature is for the registered medical practitioner towards the end to the pharmacist, because when the pharmacist supply, so the endorsement for the prescription is doing through the system. Yeah? So it's comply with requirement under Section 21, Subsection 4 of Poisons Act. So you cannot do endorsement for the supply you cannot print that electronic prescription and then endorse physically. So you have to endorse that supply through that system. Yeah? So that the basic idea how you can choose which platform provider that you want to partner with. Yeah? So the pharmacists have to take responsibility to check the system first, because we are the one that going to use and supply the poison based on that system. So we have to ensure that system comply with all the requirements, acts, laws, and the guidelines of the issue. Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick add-on from a non-technical perspective, because the two have been very technical, right? We talk about the cybersecurity and data protection, right? It's a collective effort and responsibility from the 5 P. Just I mentioned 3 Ps, right? And I got 2 Ps here. So the first P is a collective effort and responsibility from the patient himself. Patient will also be responsible for all this data protection. It's not only always the system guy, patient. Number 2, providers. Right, the provider is also responsible for all this data protection. If you share your PIN code, your password, you are liable, you are accountable to that. Number 3 is policymaker. Also, they are making all this policy is to ensure that all the data are safe and secure. Number 4, of course, payer. Right, payer can be patient, can be insurer. All these they are also assessing data, so they also have the responsibility within the healthcare ecosystem. Number 5 is a platform or places, platform like us, Mr. Loh and myself. We have the responsibility to ensure the security of your data and cyber world as well. Yeah, so just to bear in mind, it's a collective effort and responsibility from the 5P stakeholders.
Okay, thank you to our panelists. So I would like to bring back to the earlier points by Dr. Raymond that when he said we first started this EPS, there was no standards or no guidelines. So I would like to also inform here with a small announcement to our colleagues at Bahagian. The MPS is actually currently working on the guidance document with the various EPS providers like Dr. Us and website MOUs and I think Telecom as well just signed with MPS on how we actually going to standardize the practice of EPS across the whole sector so that the systems may differ, charges may differ, some are better discount, better rates, but the practice side, we are trying to make it as consistent as possible so that the providers will be competing based on their services, but the entire ecosystem will be the ones that is the best and safest and most secure for patients as well as the providers. And then we will also work with Bahagian on this and how to further enhance the guidance document. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. Are we allowing questions for the panel? Yeah, please.
My name is Mohd. Assalamualaikum and good morning to everybody. I just want to remind you guys I'm on the exit pool of employment and we are an aging society. This question is to what you call Strategik and focus to you. You'll be gathering information but data collection pool. You have a big pool, maybe 10-20 years from now. How are you going to work with insurance companies? Give out our details. You may have from kids for the the next 20 years, all the mining analytics, stomachache, toothache, we have all the data of insurance system. So what will be your relationship? Or let's say you decide to sell it 20 years away to a corporate, let's say an insurance company. These things have to be looked. You just can't rush into it. This is a very slow process to take. And we have had failures in Pelesenan Hospital in the past. So I hope you look into this.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a very good question asked. Thanks for the question. My personal view, my response, and of course from our company side is currently in the landscape, we are at the data collection phase. You're right, 10 years later, we will be having tons of trillions of data, even from the primary care network itself, right? Because every day we have so much of data coming from north, south, east, west, and from all the pharmacies and clinics and all this. How we actually use the data is the key, rather than how we sell the data, right? So when we say sell the data, there are a lot of consulting firms, insurance, they're already, buying data, but all this data being bought are non-identifiable data. When I say non-identifiable data, they would not know you are having high blood pressure or you are on, Lipitor. No, but they will know you are staying in Taman Sutera, that the Lipitor sales have been very high recently. Why? Right? Oh, because they're actually opening 3 more clinics in Taman Sutera. Right? So we are looking at the data at a very high level, right? So right now, as I mentioned, interoperability is always an issue. You have data on different form. Not everyone is using HL7, right? The international standard, right? So if you want to normalize, it takes time. So of course, we have to look at, is there any existing, data, exchange powerhouse that actually, collecting all the data from different sectors, including the public, into this data exchange powerhouse, do all the massaging, right? Analyze it and pump it back to the relevant stakeholders. In this case, you might say of some commercial entities like pharmaceutical companies who will be very interested in some of this data, because that might save them time and cost on R&D. For example, insurer, right? They will be able to tell in terms of the disease prediction, the risk assessment, risk stratification of certain group, and so that they can design the product for the buyers. I mean, that is a commercial world, right? So all these data are very, very important. It's a matter of how we use it professionally, ethically, and safely, for the interest of the industry, especially the patients. So to answer the question, right now we are not in the huge scale to sell the data. We are still in the phase of collecting data, but all these data are structured, unstructured, but not normalized. It might not mean anything to everyone without analytics, right? But talk about AI. So you look at ChatGPT. Did it start from yesterday? No. ChatGPT started from more than 10 years ago. And more than 10 years ago, they started collecting data. And who gave this data? It's you and I. When you Google, when you search things online, when you are wired and do all the searching, all this data being captured for the past more than 10 years. And today we are so impressed by ChatGPT. Within seconds, you can come up with a legal document. You can come up with the script of the show and all this, right? And all this is 10 years ago. We are at the 10 years ago right now. So hopefully, in the next 3 to 5 years' time, we will be able, in the healthcare sector, to come up with the ChatGPT insight for the industry, the 5P industry, to make healthcare more efficient, safer, and better. Thank you.
Dr. Raymond, thank you. Do we have time for questions? Organizer? One more question. I'm sorry. One more. I'll give one more question. One last question. Any burning questions before I wrap this up? Okay, yes.
Good morning. Since the health and medical data are so important to everybody, which everybody has the data, is I'd like to ask the panel, would the central registry, such as like similar to the national registry, like everybody has IC, would be a possible solution or possible setup in the future to keep all this data, so that newcomers of any platform would actually have to go to that central registry, right, to be able to operate.
Maybe from Dasar side, can you answer on the government's policy on this?
So as I mentioned before, within the National Health White Paper 2023, so the aim is to have that one single health medical record per person for the whole life, from birth to until the end. That is the plan. But it's going to take some time to make it able to be across all the systems available all in Malaysia. So it is being visualized, but we will see whether we'll be able to achieve it within the time frame that we have allocated.
To add on what Nadzifah already mentioned, under MOH, I think most of you already know that there is a regulatory lab for online healthcare services conducted by the Bahagian e-health, Bahagian Perubatan Ministry of Health. So all the online healthcare services, including e-pharmacy provider, already in that regulatory lab. If I'm not mistaken, it is already the second cohort, and then they are waiting for the third cohort. So all the inputs from the providers will be gathered through e-health to consolidate all the information to strengthen the industry in the future. Thank you.
Maybe Dr. Raymond can share. Is the doctors willing to share data with the National Registry?
Yeah, and from day one, we already had the ambition to really, collect the network data from the pharmacy to plug to the National Electronic Health Record. How we will do that? Of course, we still need a lot of discussion because, like what Puan mentioned, it takes time. So at the private sector, can we do things first, fast, right? So because MOH might have a lot of areas, a lot of levels. So if we are able to connect all the pharmacy, right, all the data in a very easier signal flow way, compliant to all the data format and all this, I think it will speed up the process of the white paper where we mentioned, the one registration, one record for one person, right? If I can chain all the data at the primary care level, right, and bring it to the MOH side, and I think to realize that vision can be, sped up. My opinion. So yes, we are willing to share the data, not to sell the data, to share the data for the benefits of the patients and the community. Yeah, of course, we always need to work with MOH for this instance. Thank you.
Slow, you want to add anything on that? Okay, so thank you very much once again. I would like to sort of sum up our discussions this morning. So I think we all agree that an electronic prescribing system is not so simple from just the prescriber side and to the dispensing side. It involves a multifaceted interaction between technology, policymakers, healthcare professionals, as well as legislation, so we all comply with the law as we further advance into digital health. So I think all the panelists have agreed that it's not a one-day process. You cannot just do this overnight. So we have the laws in place now. So we'd like to urge our colleagues in pharmacies to consider into this trend. Maybe start by using more electronic records. Yesterday we had the discussions on the digitalization. We can start with electronic records so that patients can come to the pharmacy with just IC and then they have their past medical records. And then from there we move into, it will be easier to transition to EPS system instead of directly everything from buku 555 and then you want to jump to yes, I think it will be a huge jump for most people if you are not transitioning properly. So with all these steps, I hope we can ensure our pharmacy practice is upheld. It's a convenience, but our professionalism and our competency still needs to be maintained at a high level to provide the best patient care. With that, I'd like to conclude our forum and thank you once again to our panelists for your insightful sharing. So before we allow panelists to go, I'd like to share a few token of appreciation from the organizers. Firstly, I'd like to invite Puan Nadzifah. Slow.
Thank you, Mr. Tan and our expert panelists. Before we have our